Hello, my name is Jacob Kerr, and today I will be introducing you to the preliminary history, introduction, and impact of the 1911 pattern pistol. The history of the 1911 is long and colored. It has been carried by gunfighters, lawmen, outlaws, armed citizens, competitive shooters, and soldiers alike. It is one of the most popular and enduring pistol designs of the 20th century, but to truly understand the impact of the firearm, it is necessary to study the men behind its creation, as well as its ancestors that previously filled the role of a military sidearm. The story of the 1911 begins with its predecessors, namely Colt revolvers, as they were the first military sidearms to use metallic cartridges and, as such, brought handguns into the modern age. The story of Colt revolvers begins with the man himself, Samuel Colt. Colt was born in Hartford, Connecticut on July 19, 1814. As he grew older, Colt became fascinated by the design and functionality of machines, including his father's firearms. He often disassembled and reassembled them to find out how they worked. In 1830, at the age of 16, Colt decided that life at home didn't provide him with the adventure that he yearned for, and so decided to find a ship that was assembling a crew and set sail for the horizon. It was during a seafaring voyage that Colt first came up with his idea for a revolver by observing the turning spokes of the ship's wheel. Colt received his first firearm patent in 1835 and began expanding his company and reputation. Colt died in 1862, but his wife took over his company and the business continued to thrive. Due to a patent conflict with Smith & Wesson, Colt's company could not begin development of bored-through revolver cylinders for metallic cartridges until 1869. After this period, Colt's engineers went to work and developed the legendary Colt Single Action Army. The Colt Single Action Army, or Colt Peacemaker, is widely regarded as one of the most famous designs of firearm history and is widely known as the gun that won the West. It had such famous users as the American General George Patton and T.E. Lawrence, also known as Lawrence of Arabia. The revolver was originally chambered in .44 American, but was later modified to accept the .45 long Colt round, thus beginning the legend of the Colt 45. The revolver was submitted for military trials in 1872. It was gladly accepted and served as the main military sidearm until 1892, when it was replaced by Colt's double-action model 1892 New Army revolver, chambered in .38 long Colt, which is a much smaller round than the .45 long Colt of the single-action Army. The military made the switch to the 1892 revolver primarily for two reasons, those being, 1, its double-action capability. The difference between a single-action firearm and a double-action firearm is that a single-action firearm must have its hammer manually drawn to the rear before a trigger press will discharge the weapon, while a double-action firearm may have its trigger pulled, which draws back the hammer and automatically releases it, thus discharging the weapon. This will be important in studying later designs. And 2, the benefit of the controllability of the smaller and lighter .38 caliber rounds. The Model 1892 proudly served the American military through the Spanish-American War, where it was famously carried by Theodore Roosevelt's Rough Riders, but reports came back from the battlefield that the pistol failed to stop enemies due to the smaller diameter of the projectile as compared to the .45 long Colt, as well as its lighter powder charge. This revelation sent the military on a quest to find a firearm suitable to replace the aging design of the revolver. Enter John Browning and the 1911. John Moses Browning was born on January 21, 1855, in Ogden, Utah, to Mormon parents. He was born to Jonathan Browning, an accomplished gunsmith who had opened his own shop in his teens, and his wife, Elizabeth Clark. John started working in his father's shop at the age of 6 and assembled his first rifle from scrap at the age of 10. Browning continued working in his father's shop, but his career didn't really kick off until 1883, when a traveling salesman from Winchester bought a used single-shot rifle made by Browning and brought it back to the vice president and general manager of Winchester, who traveled from New Haven, Connecticut to Ogden so that he could meet Browning in person. A deal was struck and Browning began his 19-year relationship with Winchester. From 1884 to 1887 alone, Browning designed and sold 20 different models of pump-action and lever-action firearms to Winchester, most of which were never produced. Winchester bought them solely to keep the designs out of the hands of their competitors. Browning is responsible for some of the most renowned designs of history, including the Winchester 1894, famously carried by John Wayne in practically all of his Western films, the Browning automatic rifle, also known as the BAR, which served the American military through the First and Second World War, as well as the Korean conflict, and the Browning M2, affectionately called the Ma-Deuce, 50 caliber heavy machine gun, which has continually served the American military for over 90 years and continues to do so. But his most famous and signature design was that of the .45 ACP 1911 pistol. The 1911 is legendary. It carries with it stories of peace and war, of life and death. It is a relic of a past age, and yet still amazingly relevant. The 1911 was introduced in a time when revolvers were carried worldwide. It was a time when the few automatic pistols that were used were awkward, cumbersome, overly complicated, and did not perform well in harsh environments. The 1911 changed things. The 1911 was patented on February 14, 1911, and its military trial took place on March 3rd of the same year. During the trial, the pistol was made to fire 6,000 rounds of ammunition, and then was subjected to a further trial in which the pistol fired deformed ammunition in order to further test its reliability. Upon the firing of the last round of the trial, an assistant who aided in the loading of magazines is said to have announced, "She made it by God," a sentiment echoed by John Browning himself. The 1911 fires the .45 ACP cartridge, once again intended to replace the less powerful .38 Long Colt of the 1892 revolver, and feeds from a 7-round, single-stack, detachable box magazine. In a time when revolvers were carried the world over and were typically carried with only 5 rounds in the cylinder to prevent accidental discharge, a 7-round detachable magazine was revolutionary by itself. The pistol was the longest-serving sidearm in American military history, serving through 1985 when it was replaced by the Beretta M9. The pistol is a single-action only design and, as such, is meant to be carried with a fully loaded magazine, a round in the chamber, the hammer back, and the thumb safety engaged. The single-action only design also makes the triggers on 1911s excellent, making the pistol very shootable for users of all experience levels. The 1911 has been carried by a wide variety of people in equally varying occupations. Sergeant Alvin York used his issued 1911 and Enfield bolt-action rifle to kill 25 German soldiers and capture over 130 others in a single day during World War I. Notorious criminals Pretty Boy Floyd, Machine Gun Kelly, John Dillinger, and Bonnie Parker were all killed or captured with 1911s in their possession. John Basilone, the "Hero of Guadalcanal," carried a 1911 during his service in the United States Marine Corps during World War II, and responsible armed citizens carry 1911s every day. The 1911 has proven to be adaptable, and the legend of the 1911 has continued to this day, with such modern firearms instructors as Travis Haley of Haley Strategic Partners and Chris Costa of Costa Ludus, as well as several special operations military units still employing modernized versions of the design. The 1911 revolutionized sidearms not only through its operation, simplicity, and reliability, but also in the fact that it paved the way for even greater designs. One such design is that of the Browning High Power, also known as the Browning P35, which was an improvement on the 1911 design and set the standard for modern military pistols. The P35 was the last design of John Browning, who died shortly before its completion of a sudden heart attack in 1926. The design was completed by an assistant at the Fabrique Nationale of Belgium. The P35 shares much cosmetically with the 1911, but what really sets it apart is the fact that it fires the 9mm Parabellum cartridge as well as its 13-round double-stack magazine, as compared to the 7 rounds of the 1911. The P-35 set the precedent for modern pistols with this feature, and because of its large capacity, excellent ergonomics, and general reliability, it was eventually adopted by over 50 countries and still serves as the primary pistol for most of Europe's armies and police forces. The P-35 has proven itself in the hands of military, law enforcement, and private citizens all over the world. Its design has had an influence on all modern pistols, including the Smith & Wesson M&P series, Glock pistols, and the Beretta M9 currently in service with the United States military, and none of these designs would exist without the introduction of the 1911 pistol.